The team at Iron Galaxy put a lot of work into Rumbleverse, working to develop the game for more than 3 years. During the development process, it's not uncommon for ideas to be abandoned, and given the abrupt decision from Epic Games to shut down Rumbleverse, it's also possible there were ideas actively being worked on up until the bitter end. The game files tell a story of features that, at one point or another, may have made their way into the game. Here are 10 things that can be found in the game files that were never added to the game. In Rumbleverse, you could earn random perks by dealing damage to players. This added an element of luck to the game, especially in the first season when health perks were not guaranteed and the meditative power was too strong. However, it seems like Iron Galaxy may have at one point considered adding the ability to collect perks as pickups on the map. In the game files, in the Pickup Objects folder, there's a perk folder which contains a 3D mesh of a purple token. Although the icon on the token doesn't correspond to any perk existing in the game, it's possible this was just a placeholder image, or maybe Iron Galaxy was exploring a new perk. Curiously, this is the only item in this video that's no longer in the game files, having been removed in the post-shutdown update. Everyone knows that winning the Rumble takes muscle, and it looks like Iron Galaxy knew that too. There were an assortment of weights and other workout equipment scattered around Capital City, but nothing that players could pick up. However, it looks like that may have eventually changed. In the game files, in a folder that contains all of the items players can pick up, there's a 3D model of a dumbbell weight. Maybe it would have been similar to a collectible perk token, or maybe it was something you could emote with to earn strength, or maybe it was just the remnants of a scrapped idea. I've already done a full video on the assortment of old and new stat pods that exist within the game files. If you want to watch that video, you can click on the title card in the top corner of the video, or you can click the link in the description. To summarize, there are still inventory icons in the game files for old versions of the stat pods. These old versions are labeled small, and the stat pod icons that made it into the game are labeled big. In the folders that contain the 3D files, there are small, medium, and large folders that contain variations of the stat pod textures which can be used for the jar and nuke shaped pods. Although it looks like the idea was dropped in pre-release development and never made it into the beta of the game, it does seem like Iron Galaxy was planning to have multiple sizes of stat pods. We'll never know how that system could have worked, but I suspect they would have boosted your stats by different percentages or taken more than one spot in your available stats. It seems like pizza was on the list of potential additions to the game. Although there are no 3D models or textures in the game files, there is a folder in the pickup items that's called pizza. Unfortunately, this folder only contains a placeholder grid texture, which is used to help developers UV map the texture to the 3D model, so it's anyone's guess as to what the pizza would have actually looked like. Fortnite has a pizza consumable that, when placed, allows players to eat slices to regain health. This concept could have also worked in Rumbleverse. The pizza could have been an item actively being developed for Season 3, or it simply could be an idea that was eventually replaced with the popcorn party added in Season 2. We may never know. Trash cans were available when the game launched in August. Players could pick up these weapons that were scattered throughout Capital City, and when broken, they'd also drop loot. They came in two forms: regular trash cans found in residential areas, and metal trash cans found within the city. However, it seems like plastic trash cans may have been considered for the game, since the inventory icon exists in the game files. Given that the icon looks unfinished and there are no 3D models in the game, it's likely that the item was dropped early in development. Both of the existing trash cans were able to withstand 2 hits, so it's likely that the plastic trash can would have been the same, but with a slightly lower damage output of probably around 100. With the shutdown announcement coming so suddenly and so close to the start of Season 3, it's likely a large portion of the work was already completed for the upcoming season prior to the shutdown. Although there are no Season 3 files in the game, an assortment of Skip Lagerday narrations, fan mail messages, and low-key key props suggest that a monster awaits at low-key key. The general consensus among players is that the monster was a kraken. This is a pretty obvious guess given some of the scenery from the game. Sadly, we may never know what the kraken looks like or how it would have been integrated into the Rumble. There are a few perk icons in the game files that were not available in the game. The first is the Eagerness Perk. While it's not possible to know for sure how any future perks would have worked, based on the icon's similarity to the Burn perk that was already in the game, the perk was most likely related to stats. Given that the icon has a +1, it's reasonable to assume that the perk would have given the player an additional stat slot to their allocation. Another perk that can be found in the game files is the Cliffhanger. It looks similar to the Runner perk. This perk almost certainly would have reduced the amount of stamina used when climbing walls. This would have been extremely useful when scaling the towering buildings of Grappital City or the tall cliffs of Low-Key Key. Hot Hands is another perk icon that was in the game files but never actually available in the game. The icon doesn't really look like any of the existing perk icons, so it's more difficult to guess what the perk would have been. It most likely would have been a perk to increase the speed or damage output of a basic strike attack. The Aerodynamic perk is the only other perk in the game that resembles fire, so it's also possible that the perk could have added some kind of explosion damage to the basic strike, although that's already kind of covered with the Bombastic perk. The Optimized perk is another icon that doesn't really resemble any other perk icon from the game. At first glance, it may look like some kind of development placeholder, but there's already placeholder icons elsewhere in the game files that likely would have been used for this. My first guess as to what the perk could have been is something mechanical, given that it's a gear. Maybe increased bounce height off the bounce pads in cars, or perhaps increased durability of weapons.